Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Fooled by Plants. Today, I'm going to make a requested recipe. So, I was at a party last week, and my friend Dan came up to me and said, I love your videos. However, are you going to do that pasta salad that I really like? So, for you all today, I am going to do Danny's favorite Italian pasta salad. So, as you can see, there's a lot of ingredients. Most of these are spices, and it's only because the pre-made salad spices that you buy in the store are not plant-based. They have dairy cheese in them. So we're going to recreate that same flavor profile, but we're going to do it all plant-based, of course. So realistically, this is just going to be throwing a bunch of ingredients together. And while I do not do product endorsements in this video, no one sponsored me for any of this content today for this. There are a couple products that I will mention that I use by brand name only because that's what I feel make this special. Yes, you can swap out things that you might have at your store and get a close proximity to what I'm going to make you today. But there are two ingredients that I feel pretty strongly about that I personally like, and I will share them with you in the recipe. So before we even got started, as with any pasta salad, I already went ahead and boiled the pasta, drained it, and it is now chilling out in the sink in some cold water. So we want those noodles just to stop cooking and chill out after they're boiled before we start throwing them into a pasta salad that's going to intended to be a cold served pasta salad. So for the base of our pasta salad, this is very simple. We are going to take 3 cups of your favorite plant-based already prepared Italian dressing. If you want to make your own Italian dressing, make 3 cups of it, 24 fluid ounces, and that is what we are going to start in the base of our Italian pasta salad. Now to that, I'm going to have to add a bunch of spices, and I want to make sure that I get my ratios correct, and I don't want to throw anybody off, but this is, got my notes here because I want to make sure that I give everyone accuracy. This is going to be 1.5 teaspoons of sesame seeds. To that, we are going to add 1 teaspoon of paprika. Then we are going to add 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of celery salt, 1/2 teaspoon of poppy seeds. Now we're going to go into the 1/4 teaspoons, a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of coarse black pepper, and then just a dash of cayenne pepper. I like my little spicy mine, so might be a dash, or probably the equivalent of a eighth of a teaspoon if you have an eighth of a teaspoon measurer. So those are all of the spices. So we're going to just go ahead and get all those spices incorporated nicely into our base Italian dressing. Now to this, I'm going to use another 2 tablespoons of a grated plant-based Parmesan cheese. This actually replaces the Romano cheese that is in the store-bought pre-made Italian salad seasoning packets. And again, we're fooling by plants. Swapping that Romano cheese out for a plant-based Parmesan grated, no one will ever tell the difference. So now we have our base, and it's time to add everything else that we want to add before we add the pasta. So I have already diced up everything, but the first thing I'm going to show you is a plant-based salami that I use. I like this brand, Ives. It is a plant-based salami. If you cannot find this in your store, because in Pittsburgh, I have to go to one place, and again, I'll give them a little shout out because they always carry this for me. It's the East End Co-op in Pittsburgh. They always carry it. Can't really find it in any of my other grocery stores. You could make this same recipe and swap it out for a plant-based pepperoni, which is much easier to find in most grocery stores. Just make sure that you've cubed it up and it's in small pieces. After you've cubed it up, make sure that you wash your hands because, again, you don't want to touch raw proteins in anything that you're going to touch with your thing. So even though I've cut this up and I've washed my hands, I'm going to wash my hands again before I start touching my stir. And that is only just because any kind of protein in its raw form isn't great. Now, this has been obviously a processed meat product and it's meant to be served cold as a deli product, as a deli slice alternative. So you're probably fine. I just always wash my hands before I go back to touching my cooking utensils. Okay, so now that we have the plant-based meat in here, it's time to add our veggies. So I am going to throw in one small green pepper that has been diced. I'm going to throw in 1/2 of a small white onion. You know, I love onions. You guys see me putting it in everything that I cook. In this recipe, though, you don't need a whole lot. So a small, 1/2 of a small white onion diced is plenty. Also, I have peeled, scooped out the seeds, and diced up an entire small cucumber. This is probably about 8 ounces, between 8 and 10 ounces of diced cucumber. Very fresh. So this is actually the perfect pasta salad for the summertime. This would be great for summer picnics. So we're just going to incorporate that. And the last thing I'm going to add is I got some cherry tomatoes and I halved them, cutting them down the center long ways. So I think it just looks nicer. It's a presentation preference in that scenario to cut them that way. So I'm going to incorporate all of those before we add our last 2 ingredients. And that is looking great, actually. So let me get these out of our way so we can actually see in the bowl what we've got going on. I'm going to add now, second to last ingredient, actually it would be 3 ounces of your favorite plant-based mozzarella shredded cheese. So basically that's a 1/2 of a package. So if you get a package of plant-based mozzarella cheese, it usually comes in 7.1 ounce package. So this is about a 1/2 of a pack, maybe a little less than a 1/2. And we're just going to go ahead and stir that cheese on in with the rest of the mixture, make sure everything is incorporated before we go to the pasta. So that looks very well incorporated. So it's now time to drain our pasta from the cold water and we're going to throw it in with our mixture. I have used many different kinds of pastas when I've made this recipe. However, the one that I feel works the best is the tricolored rotini. It just looks nice. The noodle shapes are fun. They help, soak in a lot of those ingredients. And when you're serving it, it just seems like those spirals and those noodles really do help grab all the flavor in with this. So all I'm going to do now is fold in that cooked and chilled pasta until we have everything very equally distributed, which we very quickly were able to do because everything was already pre-incorporated before we had the pasta. So you will, yes, see things getting splashed around on my counter. That is because sometimes I am a messy cook. And that's okay, because that's what they make cleaning wipes for. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We have Danny's favorite Italian pasta salad. Now, the only thing we're going to do is I'm going to transfer this into a container so that I can put it in the refrigerator. This should really refrigerate for about 4 hours before you serve it, just to give all the flavors some chance to come together. What that will also do, and I know that I've talked about this in other recipes, is when you use a plant-based alternative substitute for a meat product, a lot of times you can get that texture and flavor to more mimic its original counterpart when you add fat. So there was a lot of fat in the way of oils in our Italian dressing. So that salami substitute will just go ahead and help soak in some of those oils and it will change the texture. And when people eat it, don't realize that it's plant-based. Everyone thinks that it's real salami in there, and that's how we get them fooled by plants. So we're going to recap this recipe, and I'll see you in about 4 hours, and we'll give it a taste just to make sure it tastes as good as I remember. And I hope I made Danny proud. See you in a few. Well, it's been 4 hours, so it's time to give it a taste and see if we can be fooled by plants. So you can see everything has just come together. The noodles have soaked in a lot of that dressing, and it just looks amazing. Let's see how it tastes. Mm. Tastes like summer. All these fresh vegetables mixed in with the pasta, the cheeses, and the salami. It's amazing. Make this. Fool your friends by using plants. So make sure to follow us on our website at fooledbyplants.com, where you can get a copy of this recipe that you can either download or print. And be sure to like and subscribe to these videos so that you keep getting notifications of all of the new recipes that are coming out. Follow us on our socials, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.